Tartarus, never to come out. Tartarus was a mythological place that people who were punished by God put like the worst offenders who got punished by God would get thrown down in Tartarus forever, never to come out. And when I understood what Tartarus was, what was interesting about it is that I wondered maybe if I was mistaken, because, and my conviction was no, I'm certainly not mistaken. But then I also wondered why I could have such a conviction that I'm certainly not mistaken, because I was wondering if I was mistaken. So I was in question myself for seeing something different from the normal view of what society says it is. And it was just strangeness to actually be able to ask myself, why am I so sure of what I'm feeling right now? And it was that I had some understanding of what I thought Tartarus was, and it was not what anyone is told it is. And certainly what it is said to be is certainly not what it is, or at least not what should be said about it. So I want to share with you what I seem to think I know about it. And it's more like a secondary feeling that I truly can't tell you what it is. Well, I could tell you what I think it is, and I'm not going to do it, because I'm just going to say whatever it is that is sure of itself is more than just me, because I'm sure, and then I'm the one questioning it. And then there's another part that is absolutely sure of it. So that's the second part that is in me, not the one part, but the two parts, and the second part that actually is sure of it. So I can't confer with the second part of myself because it's not identifying itself just to be anything. So it maybe doesn't want me to know what it is, but it's sure of itself. It certainly wants to at least convince me that I think I'm right. So I go with it. And I will tell you what's important to know about Tartarus. I didn't really understand what Tartarus was, although I'd read about it many times. And so when I actually did understand what it was, my realization and the understanding was, well, I already thought I did know what it was. And in the understanding of actually realizing it, it was more like an understanding of I didn't really know what it was, because the moment I actually understood what it was, it didn't come to me in an understanding of something like an understanding. It came to me in a realization that I didn't know, actually, and I thought I did, but it was whatever I read about it wasn't it, or at least, yeah. So Tartarus is a place where you get thrown down for the worst punishments by God, and you never come out of it. When you get in Tartarus, you're never coming out of it. I mean, almost certainly. Well, what's important to know is when you go into Tartarus, or when you get thrown into Tartarus, or when God throws you out of wherever and into Tartarus, well, you're never coming out, pretty much, is the rule. And what is crazy about it and the understanding? Well, the crazy thing is that if you actually understand what it is, well, nobody wants to come out of Tartarus. So let me tell you that it's the worst. Tartarus is the worst place, and where the worst offenders get thrown to, where they have to end up. Like, we're talking about Tartarus is the one place you don't want to have to go to. It's like the most maximum security criminal facility with rampant everything going wrong and bad. Like, it's the worst of the places you could possibly be. But what I understood about it was not that it was the worst place you could possibly be, unless you knew why it was the worst place. Because actually what I understood it to be was a place that people preferred to not only live there, but actually couldn't have the thought to think they're going anywhere else forever, for eternity, because they expect that people who live in Tartarus believe that they'll be in Tartarus forever, that there is no other place to be. They don't even know there's another place besides Tartarus, so they're not aware that Tartarus is a place of the worst offending punishers that will never get to return to whatever they were before they came to Earth and became human. So in the realization of understanding, it was a profound understanding. Are you kidding me? So what you're trying to tell me here is that Tartarus is a place people like to live in. Not only like to live in it, they try to make the best they can in it. And they also fight wars in it, kill each other in it. They're dying of diseases in it. Everything's happening bad in it. But in other places, people are living and they don't even know that they're in. It's kind of like being in hell and you don't even know you're in hell. Or you think hell's like not so bad since it's all you know. You don't even know that heaven exists. Well, the crazy thing about it is is that to actually realize that almost everybody in Tartarus actually is planning on being there for eternity and doesn't even know they could ever escape. They're not aware that it's even possible to get out. And I assume that if truly the gods are making some profit off of keeping souls punished and thrown down in Tartarus, well, if that's truly like some profitable business for the gods, well, then I'm not saying things that could be. If it is, I'm not going to get in their way. I wouldn't get in the gods' ways. I would not interfere with the goddess. I wouldn't interfere with any of the powers that be, even though I don't happen to know most of them, just the ones that talk to me only. And Tartarus is a place where people, they look at it as a great place, like a preferred spot. It's like a heaven and hell to them. But Tartarus is worse than hell. It's like, yeah. So the whole point here is people that don't even know in Tartarus that they're in Tartarus. They don't know they can get out. They expect they'll never get out. They've even made themselves happy with the fact they're never getting out, and they truly don't even remember where they were before they got thrown into it. So they have no memory of where they were. In fact, they think they weren't. People get thrown out in Tartarus, do not even remember that they existed before they got thrown down there. In fact, they thought they were born in Tartarus, and that's all they'd ever been in. They don't even think they're going to be in Tartarus literally forever. They just know that death is forever. So they think that they're going to actually just live one life in Tartarus and die. They don't realize that it won't matter if they live life after life and they keep getting erased or forget. Well, they'll think they've always been there and they'll make the best of it. Well, then in a sense where you have no power to get out of it, you can't escape it. Well, in the sense that there's no way you're getting out of it. Like well, if that's true, well, God knows that each person's crime, according to the crime, will be whether the chances will be greater or lesser that you'll ever get out of Tartarus. But let me tell you, the best chance that take a person that has the best chance to get out of Tartarus ever, it's about the same chance you have as becoming immortal again. So if you could think of what are the chances that as a human being you could become immortal again someday, not necessarily a god, but an immortal human, an immortal person that doesn't die. And there's many different types of immortality. What if would you even know that that's how hard it would be? What do you think what chance is ever going to be you're going to be immortal again? Well, maybe perhaps in the longest sense of it, it's possible that you could say to yourself, it may take another 1,000,000 years, literally, before I get out of this hell or out of that hell. Or that's what I'm feeling. That's what I'm feeling. That's what it is to me. And it's like, wow, because I don't know. I can't possibly ever win. God's not going to tell you anything. Well, I can't say he won't. Maybe he will if he does. And I'm just fearing there's too many of them that will never know, never be told. And the ones that can make themselves okay with it, well, that's great. What about the ones that are having a real hard time with making themselves okay with it and they struggle for an eternal suffering to boot? Eternal suffering, eternal mental anguish for the few and many that can't make themselves okay to like being in hell or like it. And now the point is, if mythology is not even understood, it's really not. So, but let me tell you, what I've seen from the mythology is I must be so crazy out of my mind. And I would ask the gods and goddesses to forgive me no matter how nuts I might be. But understand, I'm nuts enough to think I get communicated. I'm nuts enough to think I talk to the biggest and the best of them. I'm nuts enough to think that it's actually happening. And there's also a part of me that wonders if it is. Because understand, you don't see anything when you talk to God. You hear a voice or you feel and you interpret feelings. Or it's like a voice you hear. But you could be crazy. Maybe you're schizophrenic. Maybe you need a mental hospital. Understand, when you talk to God, you certainly won't have necessarily any belief. In fact, you might even question it more when he actually does talk to you, because you'll be in disbelief then. And being in disbelief is something for real. I've experienced it, meaning the more he proves himself to me, the more disbelief I fall into, because I just can't necessarily bring myself to believe if he doesn't actually show up in a body that I could say, oh, there you are. Like I could see him in front of my face. He's not going to do it. He says he won't do it for anyone. So if we got to get out of this Tartarus, well, I wanted to do it. Let me tell you that you could live 1,000 lifetimes, and in 1,000 lifetimes, never even know any of what I'm sharing right now. think of 1,000 lifetimes you lived, and you wouldn't even know anything about anything, that there even is Tartarus, or even that there could be, or you just thought you were a human on Earth and you only live once. Let's say for 1,000,000 years, all you ever did was live once and do it over and over and think you only did live once. Because each time you forgot about the last time, and you won't remember the next time until you're there, and then you'll think it was the only one you had every time you're there. So it's the ultimate terrible state. Now let me tell you, the chances of getting out of Tartarus are increased by your ability to be making up for what you did to get there. And sexual immorality is probably the worst offense. So sexual offenders of sexual immorality, which may involve stuff you don't even know about or couldn't even imagine. So just understand, we're talking about sexual immorality at its worst. And try to imagine the worst kind, and maybe you're not getting there yet. But those would be the worst offenders in Tartarus. And they're still behaving. In some way, they're still behaving. Those souls in the humans are still acting out some sick perversion of their sexual immorality, but they're not as bad anymore, because now they're probably, they know they screwed up. They're probably like smart enough to say, I'm not going to go crazy with my craziness. Ultimately, what I'm saying is sexual immorality, the people that have committed the worst sexual immorality will never get out of Tartarus, not ever, because God will never let them out. Understand that the people like the worst evil will not be held as a bad thing by God, will not look at the devil or Satan and say that he's the worst or bad. In fact, he'll talk to him like having a conversation with somebody that he knows well. So then the worst offenders that he won't talk to, the ones he'll never talk to, the ones he will not have anything to do with, that will stay there forever, and they can do nothing to get out, not forever, are sexually immoral beings that God literally created Tartarus and threw the first beings in there, and they had violated a sexual immorality, and God hated those beings and swore that he would never let them come out. They will never, ever be able to repeat their mistakes. And ultimately, they're repeating their mistakes, though. They're doing it. They don't even know who they used to be. They're still kind of being who used to be. Maybe they're learning a little bit, they're not going to go crazy with, So some people are never getting out of Tartarus, no matter what they do. Other people might get out. And understand, some people might get out. But you'd have to know about it. You'd have to be able to even know about it to get out, and understand that sexual immorality will be the highest offense that will get you. And that goes as far as suitors. Understand that suitors will perhaps be not ever getting out of Tartarus, because suitors are stalkers. In almost 90% of cases, if you look up what a suitor is, a man who wants to marry a woman, he's a stalker. Utterly, as a spiritual being, he's a stalker, nothing more, nothing less. So wait a minute. I'm not saying that I have a problem with stalkers. I really don't. If they were stalking me, I would. And let me tell you something. Yeah, I do have a problem with stalkers. And ultimately, if they're you can't stalk a woman if you want to have a date with her. Well, if you do, you have to do it in a very careful way that has to be following every little rule. You can't even, if you even appear like you're a stalker by accident, it's too late. You're already convicted as being ineligible. There's so many things that you can be ineligible to ever get to heaven for. And understand that no one even thinks they could be so perfect as to be like Jesus. So understand, no one's going to get there. No one's going to get there ever. And ultimately, I don't think I'm going to get there either, at least not in this lifetime. And the only thing that really disappoints me is that I actually have memory and know that if it was even close to possible, the amount of knowledge I have now would only increase my chance in a huge way. My chance of getting there, even though it might be zero, it's certainly increased several 100%, 1,000% in the last 6 months, because I'm actually aware the problem with ever getting out of hell is you won't even know you're in it.